Hi, everybody. Nancy Atkins here with Atkins Family Law. And I want to bring to you today this webinar that we have. We thought this would be a good subject for everybody to talk about. So we also got some questions ahead of time, so we can certainly go through some of those questions as well. So I thank you for submitting your questions ahead of time. And what we're going to try and do in the next 30 minutes is to really talk about some of those options that you have. You know, I'm a big proponent of you always have a choice. You always have an option. And then part of my job is figuring out what's going to be the best option for you. So I just want to take the next 30 minutes with you guys and sort of walk through what some of the choices are, some of those streets that you're going to have to come to, and you're going to have to cross some bridges when you go through this. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get your divorce. And really, you know, in my 15 years of doing this, there's no two cases that are alike. And so I just want to try to cover some of the top options that you have and some of the things that I've seen along the way, trying to get clients from point A to point B to point C and getting them divorced. So the short answer is you'll get your divorce. And then let's take this next 30 minutes and talk about some of those bridges that you have to cross to get you there. Because it's probably common sense that if both of you want the divorce, then the two of you figure out the agreement. You guys both figure out what's going to work best for you guys. And there isn't a lot of fighting because you both want the same thing. But historically, I've always seen that one person wants it and the other one doesn't. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. Which is probably why it's funny, because it's rare that two people actually want the divorce. Or, you know, if you're that person that you don't want the divorce, but you could concede the fact that you're in a really bad relationship, you know, and that's really where I'm coming from is if you're in a bad relationship, what are you doing? You know, you're either going to work on it or you're going to try to make it better, or you're going to stop doing it because you're tired of, you know, repeating the same behavior and expecting different results.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so I just want to see how we're going to go. So let me walk through and see if I can. I'm just having a technical issue here. Let's see if I can get, okay, so here we go. So here's a little bit about me, just so you know. For those of you who don't know me, I've been practicing family law for about 15 years now. I started out with the Attorney General's office, working with the Department of Revenue. So I started out doing child support obligations and establishing, modifying, terminating, contempt, enforcement, all that stuff. Anything that had to do with child support. It's one of those things I'm very thankful for the experience, because it really taught me a lot about family law and family law here in Broward County. So that's where I got started. And it made a lot of sense for me once I had gotten through the child support piece of things, that I went into private practice. And, you know, I come from a place where I think that my parents should have gotten divorced and they didn't. And it's just, I'm one of those kids that it would have been a lot nicer for me, I think, if my parents would have gotten a divorce. So it's part of why I really enjoy what I'm doing and why I do what I do, because I really do, at the end of the day, want everybody to be in a great relationship. But anyway, yeah, so the Department of Revenue was domestic, international, and there was just every little in and out and component of child support. So I'm thankful for that experience, and allows me to serve you guys now, because I can do that stuff in my sleep. So let's talk a little bit about Florida. And this is the jumping off point for you guys, that it's a no-fault state. You know, we used to, if anybody's into history like I am, you know, there was a time and a place where actually the women and the children were treated as property. That's ancient history. And then some of the more recent history is, you know, we used to do like common law marriages, and we used to do common law divorces. And we used to talk about adultery as being one of those things that would cause someone to have rights to get a divorce, or you would get into abuse. And there was a lot of different reasons why people could set the grounds or the parameters for getting their divorce. But since then, we've all just gone to that mode that if you want the divorce, you get it, no questions asked, because we didn't want the state getting into, you know, trying to figure out if it was appropriate for you guys to get a divorce. That's really your choice to make. And I don't think the judges want to get into whether the divorce is appropriate. So the Florida legislature in their wisdom said, hey, this is going to be a no fault state. And then we don't even have to get into why you want the divorce. You just do or you don't. And the only requirement for you to get a divorce in Florida is that you've lived here for at least 6 months before you file the petition. So if you've been living in Florida for 6 months and you want to get a divorce, come on down. All right. So one of the things along the way, because like I was saying, there's always somebody who wants the divorce and then somebody who doesn't want the divorce. So, coming from the place of, I want you to be in a great relationship. And one of the key components of being in that great relationship is to make sure the two of you are communicating and then communicating effectively. I like to think of myself as a good communicator, but even I have trouble talking with people, or what I say and what they hear is two different things. So counseling is a good option for you if you both want to work on the relationship. So if you guys don't think it's quite over and you're not there yet, then you can certainly try counseling and see if that works, because it might be that you guys aren't hearing each other right, or you're not talking to each other correctly. I have a lot of situations where, like when we go to mediation, for example, and we get into mediation, and I've gotten into the habit of just starting separately, because the way that two people talk with each other can just set the mediation off in the whole wrong direction, just because of the way people talk to each other. So counseling can be really a good thing for you guys. If you think that maybe you're having trouble with your communication, or if you think that you're not being heard, if you still have feelings about the other person and you still care about the other person and you still want to try to make the relationship work, then counseling is a really, really good option. And you can do that. One of the questions that I have to ask during the divorce proceedings with the judge is if there's anything that the court could do to order for you guys to try to make the marriage work. And that's the prompt to say, would you guys like to try counseling? But you don't even have to get there to that hearing. It is one of the options that we offer. So you could potentially start a divorce and then decide as you're going through that process that the two of you would like to try some counseling. And I got to tell you, I'm here to tell you, in my 15 years, I've seen some people withdraw the divorce and stop the proceedings and get back together. And there's been a few case managements that I've gone to where I said, Judge, they're trying to work on the relationship. They're trying to work on the marriage. Could we get another 3 months? Could we get another 6 months for this particular case? Because they're trying to work on it. And I never had anybody say to me, no, we need to move it forward. No, we got to keep going. So if you and your partner are in a place that you want to try the counseling, that is always on the table. It doesn't matter where you are in your process. If the two of you, and that's the other piece about counseling, is both of you have to want the counseling. If one of you wants the counseling and the other one doesn't, then it would behoove the point of having the counseling, because you both have to want to work on the relationship. And if one of you doesn't want to work on the relationship, then we're back to, it's a no fault state. This is what one person wants, and they're going to go ahead and move forward to get the divorce. So counseling is one of your options that you could consider if you're interested in doing that. Another thing that comes up too in the divorce process is we have to look at the marriage and what's going on during the marriage. So if you have houses and assets and things that you guys have to divide up, then we've got to look at who's going to get the house, who's going to stay in it, who's moving out. That's a big thing. Somebody's got to move out. I don't like these cases where the couples stay together under the same roof while the divorce is pending. That's not a good idea. So you've got to think about where you're going to live. You got to think about the cars that you're going to keep, who's keeping what, depending on whether you have a lease or if you own your vehicle, bank accounts, investment accounts, things of that nature. So the two of you have to work it out as far as who's keeping the cash, who's keeping the house, and who's keeping what car. If you're the parent driving around the kids, or if you both have to get the kids around, then you both are going to need the kind of car that allows you to take the kids to and forth from school and extracurricular activities and things of that nature. So there's things the two of you have to work out. And if you're not in agreement and one of you wants it and one of you doesn't, then you guys are going to go around and around and around about who's keeping the house and who's keeping the car. And, one of those considerations, at least as far as the house is concerned, if you guys have kids and you want to make sure the kids are okay, then there's always that choice of who's going to stay in the house with the kids, because both parents usually want the kids to be okay. It's rare that I have a parent who doesn't want their kid to be okay. So that's a consideration, that's a concession that has to be made about who's going to be with the children and what house is best for them. Are both of you going to downsize? Are you going to sell the house? So there's a lot of considerations that the two of you have to talk about. Even if you're not getting along and you have to break down the relationship, it's what I call the business of the breakup, if you will. And you got to try to work out those money issues as part of the divorce process. So you got to have that conversation, and counseling. If we go back to the other option, then counseling might be where the two of you could discuss. Counseling might be that option for you to say, listen, we have to talk about these things and what this is going to look like on the other side. And then sometimes you get a counselor or you get a mediator who can help you work out who's getting what. But sometimes it really just is about having a facilitator between the two of you so that you guys can get to that agreement and then move forward. I mean, gosh, who wants to be stuck? So another thing that I want to go through with you guys is, if you're the breadwinner or you're the person that's making more income, then some issues are going to present themselves, such as alimony or spousal support. If you're the one making more money and that's how it was historically in the relationship, then you have to think about having to provide some support for the other spouse as you guys get ready to go through the divorce process. Even like with child support, if it's a short-term marriage and alimony is not going to be an issue, it still comes into play with the child support obligation, that if you guys split the custody right down the middle, 50-50, the person who makes more money is going to end up having to pay some child support to the other person, just simply by virtue of the fact that, you're the one making more money. Or if you're the one that's not making more money, then we have to look at, the children are entitled to both incomes. And that's the way that the child support works, is the children are entitled to the incomes. We figure out the incomes of the parties. We give credits for health insurance and things of that nature. If there's health care, if there's aftercare, and all that comes into play. So part of the divorce process is making sure that we level the playing field with both sides for both of the parties. So if you're the one making more money, then some of that's going to end up getting shifted to the other side. And then the question becomes, how much? So, certainly we can help you with doing those calculations, whether it's alimony or whether it's child support obligation. That's part of my process with you, is helping you figure out those calculations and what the obligations would be. And there's always some interplay. That's the other thing that I kind of like about these things, is having some interplay with some of the calculations that go into alimony and the child support. And I can certainly help you with those things, and then try to figure out what the best outcome is going to be for you if you happen to be the breadwinner or the person even just making more money. So that's going to be an issue that comes up. And then certainly we've talked about having the children together. A lot of times somebody wants all the assets and the income and the money, and then somebody else wants the kids. I have so many parents that just want to be parents and aren't too concerned about the money. Or if you're the parent that's more concerned about the money and less concerned about the kids. And at the end of the day, we have certain requirements under Florida law about the children and things that the parents have to agree to. I've had people come through my door and they say that they just want to see the kids when they want to see the kids. And you can't do that because it just creates more litigation. So we have some requirements under Florida law with the children, that we have to have an equal, like a certain amount of overnights. The parenting plan has to specify the number of overnights. The parenting plan has to specify the holidays. So you can't just come in, and I actually had one kicked out, oddly enough. I had a parenting plan that got kicked out because it wasn't specific enough. So it is an issue that comes up. And so, the more willing that the two of you are to try to agree on what is appropriate for the children, and then certainly focusing on the best interest of the children. And then I've always found it's better to be more specific in the parenting plan rather than being less specific in the parenting plan. And then the good news is with the parenting plan that if you guys have a parenting plan and the two of you are getting along, you can take that parenting plan and put it in a drawer, and it's like an insurance policy. Hopefully you never even need it. Nobody looks at what it says. The parenting plan, and why we want it to be specific, is because there's usually a time, place, and manner where the two of you aren't getting along, or something will come up and say, hey, Becky's got a birthday party that she's trying to go to, or there's a field trip, or there's a trip to Disney World. There's all these things that come up when two people are raising children, and there's always a conflict of interest at some point sooner or later. So the parenting plan by design is to try to smooth over those conflicts. So you have the parenting plan, you put in as much detail as possible. And then when the two of you aren't agreeing about what's happening with the children, that's when you pull out the parenting plan. You say, okay, what was it that we agreed to when we were getting along? And you start to look at, okay, Becky's going to have the kids on Wednesday night, and that she's got that extra week in July, or whatever it is that the two of you are working on, and how you guys are going to split up the children. And the other thing I like about the parenting plan also is sometimes in relationships, the parenting responsibilities are lopsided, where one parent is doing more of the parenting. And so we get the other parent that wants to step up. And that's another nice thing about the parenting plan, is that the other parent gets to step in and starts to get to define what their obligations and their responsibilities are on the parenting plan. And it's really nice to watch these people step in and parent and learn how to really, really take care of the children in a way that maybe they couldn't, for whatever reason, they couldn't do it during a relationship. And then they get on the other side of a relationship and they really turn out to be great parents, whether it's the dad or whether it's the mom. It's wonderful to watch people go through that process. So you definitely want to think about what the schedule is going to look like for the kids and the parenting plan. And, again, conversations that you have to have with somebody, even though you're not getting along. There's also the provision that sometimes people don't say things until it's really too late. And then all they can think about is getting out, and getting out. And so they'll make a lot of concessions. And I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with my clients and I've said, listen, you have to take what you've got coming to you. I don't want my clients leaving money on the table. I don't want my clients giving up their kids or too much time sharing or giving up the child support. And some of those things, there's a lot of concessions that I've seen people make along the way. So much so that sometimes I've asked people to sign a waiver to say, listen, are you sure? And that's always telling to me, because if somebody doesn't really want to negotiate, or somebody doesn't really want to ask for what they're entitled to, it's always a cue to me that somebody took too much or tried too hard. That's that, what do they say about that? When you're tired and you're exhausted, is probably because you just worked so hard trying to make something happen. And then there's a disappointment behind that it didn't work out. And you have to go through that emotional process as well. So I do try to make sure that I'm watching out to make sure that when I'm negotiating a parenting plan, when I'm negotiating the equitable distribution, when I'm negotiating the alimony and doing all these things that come up in the divorce, and these are all those crossroads that we keep talking about, is we have to make sure that it's as balanced as possible. And that doesn't mean that you can't, one of the things that you can do is you can give up the alimony and then get a little more in the child support, or get a little more in the alimony and get a little less in the child support. Those are things that you can certainly think about. And hopefully you're having a conversation with your soon-to-be ex about that. But those are things that we do as part of the negotiation process. So again, we're back to choices, we're back to options. But what I'm always looking out for is making sure that people don't just make a ton of concessions and just say, listen, I just want out. I don't care. I'm not interested. I don't want to fight. I don't want to. And there's a lot of stuff that comes up that way. So I do try to make sure that I'm taking care of my clients, that they're not giving up too much. It's okay to give up something, but just make sure that you're getting something back in exchange for that, so that it's an even negotiation or an even settlement at the end of the day, that it's, fair and balanced as far as the agreement that you're signing. Because I think the other component with that too is, once you guys sign that agreement, it's really, really hard to take it back. You don't get a lot of take backs in that agreement process. So the negotiation and figuring out what you want and what you don't want is really important on the front end, to make sure that you're solid on that. And then determining what the pros and cons are going to be for you, what's important for you as far as your priorities. And then you can really let go of those things that you don't care so much about. And those are the things that you could, throw over to the other side, because you're more interested in, if it is a short-term or moderate term alimony, or, you really do want to keep the house, or you're the person that doesn't care if you sell the house. So, if you're moving and you want a new place, then, you can, turn the house over and get the other side to buy you out. So those are things that you can be thinking about, as you go through this process. And then, there's always an emotional component to the divorce process, and people get stuck in being angry, or people get stuck in being sad. And so when they're in the middle of something that they don't want, a lot of times they will make excuses about, they're just not sure if this is right for them, or they're just not sure if this is the process for them. And we can do a lot of back and forth. We have, one of the things that I was going through, sometimes they'll agree to everything else, but then the one thing that they don't agree to, and we'll go around and around and around on that one thing that they don't agree to. So, maybe as an example, it's going to be the choice of school for the kids. So you got an agreement about the time sharing, and you got an agreement about the holidays, and you've got an agreement about the child support. And the only thing that the two of you can agree on, and this is that cue or that signal that somebody's just digging their heels in and slowing that process down, is because you are stuck on, one parent doesn't like the choice of school and the other parent does like the choice of school. And we go around and around and around and around, because, one of the issues with moving you guys through the court system is it takes a while to get you there. So, you're looking at a minimum of 3 months to get through the process. An average case takes like 6 months to work through, when you have to file the case and exchange discovery and then go to mediation. So you're looking at an average 6-month case life. And I've seen cases take a year. I've seen them take 2 years. And I've been on the other side of some other cases where they just never end. So anyway, yeah, that's another thing that will be slowing you down. And then, of course, I get paid for my time. So the more things that I have to work on, the more that I'm involved or invested in your case, I get paid by the hour. So if you spend more time on your case, going through the details and the text messages and the emails and the photos and the Facebook and all that, it's going to be more time that I have invested in your case, and it's going to end up costing you more because you don't have that agreement and you've got to get there. So, and especially if the two of you are farther apart, the farther apart you are, the more expensive it is, the longer it takes. And then, that whole, are you going to have to make some concessions? Because at the end of the day, it just might not be that important. So it's about fighting for the things that are really important to you. And then, being willing to give up or let go of those things that aren't important to you. And this goes back to, I'm just talking here for a second about the reconciliation. And I can tell you, I've had it happen plenty of times where, if you guys are going through that process and then you decide that maybe you guys want to work on the relationship. I'll always tell you or anybody else that you can always work on the relationship. You can always, always, always try to work things out. So you can file the case. You can work on the agreement. You can go to mediation. You can exchange discovery. You can do all these things. And then somebody has that little aha moment of, maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe we got to go to counseling. Maybe we got to go to another mediation. There's just a million different things that you guys can try in terms of, is this going to work or is it not going to work? And if you're in a place that you just know it's not going to work and you're ready to move forward, then I am happy to help you out with that. And I just want to take the time today to really walk you through some of those things that are going to come across as you guys are walking down the road. And I'd love to walk down that road with you and take you through that process and get you to the other side. So if you guys, I'm running out of time, at least for today. So you can either catch up with us. We've got our live Q&As coming up. We've got new webinars coming up every month. And if you guys have more questions about what we've been talking about, then you can certainly call me at the office. The office line here is 954-734-6048. You can send me an email at nancy.adkins@sflawyer.org. Make sure you hit .org because .com and .net are not me. So nancy.adkins@sflawyer.org. And we also have the website posted here for you if you'd like to get some more information about all the things that we can do for you to get you through that. Because if at the end of the day you're in a bad relationship, then I'm here to let you know you need to get out. And I'd love to help you, but you've got to do something about it. And what I'd love for you to do is to give us a call and let me help you answer the specific questions to your situation. No two cases alike. Follow me on social media. We got about 10 different channels that we're running. And then we certainly have the phone lines are open if you want to call now or email or get on the website and at least do some exploring with the research and the information that we have available out there for you. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time and being here with me today. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again real soon. And until then, be safe, be well, and be in a great relationship. I'll talk to y'all soon.